Welcome to Failed Forward, a podcast for professionals who are wondering, how the hell did I get here?
Join your host, Rachel Durkan, and me, Donna Miller, as we discuss the messy, bumpy, and often unattractive journey to success.
After all, if it isn't hard to do, is it really worth doing? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Failed Forward, the podcast for those of us wondering, how the hell did I get here? My name is Rachel Durkan. I'm with Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing, branding, and sales enablement agency that customizes and working with clients with a complex sale. So if you have a sales team whom you want to close more deals and increase the number of quality meetings they're having, we can help build a marketing to sales infrastructure that will help your business do that. And I am joined every week by my lovely and talented co-host, Donna Miller.
Thank you, Rachel. So yes, I'm Donna Miller. I am founder and president of C3 Workplace and Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, where for 30 years we have been helping business owners and professionals to accelerate their growth by providing business advisory and support services around finance, operations, and biz dev. Our goal is to help you focus on that which drives the business forward truly and have a resource to outsource to. And our clients come to us because they know we'll help them build systems that are efficient, integrated, and executable either by them or us, which bottom line allows them to create companies that run and grow without them involved in every little detail. Yes, those are angels. So
angels singing.
Spirit of failing forward. Rachel and I have not scripted this. We barely talked about what we're going to talk about here. But what Rachel and I would like to talk to you about today is how in our careers we have failed forward in holding on too long. Can you relate? Any of you, when it was all said and done, went, oh my gosh, why didn't I make that change 10 years ago?
It took me 40 years. I'm not quite 40 yet. It took me just under 40 years to learn. As a type A personality, I have always felt that my mistakes came from something I didn't do well enough or didn't achieve or something that didn't happen. And it never occurred to me until recently that I have a lot of failures that came over as a result of something that I tried too hard to make happen. And that didn't come to me until I had probably one of the worst years of my professional career.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about that as an example?
So we had a very challenging year one year, and it was challenging for a number of reasons. We were growing hyper fast, which was great, but also challenging. Our team was growing quickly, our clients were growing quickly, and my time and effort was going to what wasn't working. Because as the leader of the business, you're always looking at the fire, right? And I always felt like for that year, I felt like I was putting out fires every second. And it was always, what's the biggest fire? This little fire will get bigger later, but I need to put out the big fire right now. And that's what my year felt like. And we had clients that went through an acquisition. One of our biggest clients went through an acquisition. We were trying to hold on to that new business. And frankly, we loved the old client, but the new client I don't like so much. And it was not pleasant working with them. And it was very challenging. I had employees that, were supposed to be stars in their field and, had great reputations and just didn't fit well into our culture. And I was trying to hold on to that because I didn't want to admit failure. I didn't want to lose the client we already had. I didn't want to lose these employees that were supposed to be the stars on the team. And in my mind, all these things could not fail because they were risks I took or they were opportunities for the business. And sure enough, they all failed. It all failed around the same time. It all came crumbling down. And when after it did, it was like I could breathe again. And I looked back and I thought, holy crap, I spent so much energy and time holding on to things that weren't working because I couldn't admit they weren't working. What else did I what opportunities did I miss? Who wasn't getting my attention that should have had it? And that was such an aha moment for me to go from a failure as something I didn't achieve to a failure as something that I tried too hard to keep.
And I completely can relate to that. And what I also heard in what you said is you were trying to hold together many things at once. I think that's a sign that is all wrong, because it's like a net. It's all weaved together. You're spinning plates. You're trying to make it all work. And really what we're doing is we're trying to fit circles into squares, which never.
And you squeeze harder, right? You're in this,
Right.
you become in
Try
this
even harder.
panic
You're not going to give
mode.
up. Right.
And you're like, I can't fail at something else. I can't fail at something else. And everything's failing around you. And like some of those things should have failed.
Right.
And so my new lesson is we just brought on a huge client. And it's a 8-week sprint or a couple week sprint. And it's a lot of it's a lot of work for us in a short period of time. I mean, it's something that we're totally capable of doing, but it's just the condensed timeline that's aggressive. And I have to be really mindful that all of the shiny object isn't on that one thing, that the clients that we have now that are the long-term clients, even though they're not the shiny object, get the appropriate amount of attention. Because, I'd rather the one thing fail, that's a one-off, that's the shiny object, than the foundation fail. And it's really hard to recognize.
It is. It is. And, for me, I think when I think about the things that I've hung on to for too long, most of the time it was my perspective of a particular situation. It was rarely the actual mechanics of the situation. It was how I saw the situation. And the thing that pops to mind, and, I've shared this with you before, but, I am a totally recovered micromanager. There was no situation I couldn't make worse. And what I found in that time frame was I would hire the wrong people. And then, God damn it, I'm going to make it work. And
because I can't admit the first failure. So I have to keep it working because, well, I made the mistake, but I can fix it.
Right. And I would bring on the wrong people. I would spend an inordinate amount of time training, onboarding. Well, I didn't have an onboarding process then. That's a little
You were winging it. That's a different conversation.
That's what I was totally winging it. So, you spend all this time training, and I even found myself when people would point things out that were less than positive, like I could always put a positive spin on it. I could always find a justification for why.
Denial.
Right? That wasn't necessarily the case. The justification that helped me to hang on to things for longer than I should have. And that's two parts. So I was hiring the wrong people. And the other thing that I hung on to for too long is, and I'm almost a little embarrassed to admit this, is hiring entry-level people is a cost-effective approach to growing your business. And my thought was, I can hire them, I can train them my way. They won't have any of those bad
bullshit.
But boy, was I wrong about that too. So for me, I think my holding on was my perspective of who makes good team members. But then, oh my gosh, I held on to people for ridiculously long times. I held on to people after they cost me so much money, and I couldn't bill the client because you messed up.
I've lost probably close to $1 million in my career in hiring bad salespeople and keeping them around.
Well, and salespeople, you've gone that route. I haven't.
It was probably a poor sales process at the time also, so it wasn't entirely on them. But I mean, the money you lose, the mental anguish you lose, like admitting failure early. It's like hiring slow, firing fast. Admit failure quickly and move on. Like, don't keep trying to fix what's broken sometimes.
100%. And, that's where we come up with, our mantra of today for me is, hire slow, fire fast. And the other thing I'll say about this is in this process, and I feel grateful that, I sit here at this point in my career, pretty sure I'm not holding on to anything I shouldn't necessarily be holding. I mean, there's always things you hold on to, and we've talked about some of these things, but certainly it's not the norm anymore. It doesn't happen nearly as often as it used to. But I think it really was surrounding this, concept of who you have working for you and how you train them. And now that I work in a business growth capacity and I'm working with other business owners, I'm watching them do the same thing. And,
It's like you have to learn it yourself. You
I
have
had a
to.
client, she sends me a candidate. She's thinking about hiring a candidate. It's a support position. Some of you may know something about DISC. And she's sending me this candidate that she wants to hire because she really liked her on the phone. And she's a high D. Now, we both know a high D is probably not going to do really well in a support position. So,
Mhm.
now I have more knowledge, but the truth is she's going to do what she's going to do. I'm not holding on to that anymore. I mean, that's another thing.
Yeah.
I think the big thing that I held on to for a long time, and this is probably my biggest accomplishment in this area, is, I no longer expect that people move through the world like I do. Like
That
how egotistical,
nobody
naive, and
thinks like
dumb
this.
was I?
Yeah. Well, you said something that I think that just like children, right? I can tell my kids 100 times not to do something. They're going to do it anyway. And they're going to have to learn for themselves the hard way. And business owners have to do it. Professionals have to do it. You have to do it. You have to have the experience to truly learn, right? You can't just be told. But what I think having a good mentor or good mindset will help is that you'll only screw up 1 or 2 times to really learn the lesson instead of 7. Because, throughout my career, I probably screwed up on things 7 times before I learned.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody in your ear saying that wasn't a great idea, let's debrief on this and think through how we're not going to make that. If you're really mindful of your mistakes, then you only have to make them once and you grow so much more quickly. And so I think that that is so important. And as a mentor, knowing that you've got to let them make it, but then you've got to let them really let it resonate. But you've been talking a lot about employees, and I think that employees is definitely one where I've held on too long, but clients are a different one, vendors too, right? And where your personal affects professional, just because you have a good relationship with someone doesn't mean they're good at their job or that they're a good client to have or that it's going to work. And if it takes too much headspace, it's not worth it.
Right. And I would love to take a minute just on the client piece, because
Mm-hmm.
in my 30 years in business, I have fired two. I got fired by one of my biggest clients ever. And when they fired me, it wasn't because we did something wrong. It was because they got acquired and they were,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't anything I could do.
Yeah.
But when you get, when you lose a 5-figure per month client, you're
It
like,
hurts really
shit.
bad. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So that happened. But I've had two very large clients that I have fired. And the first one I probably did hang on for longer than I should have.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and what I found is that when I hung on for too long, that client's negativity and unrealistic expectations,
Leads into everything.
it's cancerous in your company.
And I actually, looking back on that year, I think if I had let one of those crises go, I could have seen more clearly that it was affecting the others. But you get so rigid and so tight in holding on
Yeah.
that.
And we're bumping up on the end of our time here. So what I'd love to say is that in the spirit of failing forward, what I heard you say, and I'm going to add on to it, is, now we debrief. When we fail, we debrief and we look for the breadcrumbs or the red flags. I literally used to have a piece of paper in my desk, because when I was in that process of getting outside help to hire the right people to create the culture, and I still wasn't very good at it, so I was still churning through people, not as awful as before, but still churning. I literally had a notebook, like, because some of this stuff I don't think you're legally allowed to say out loud, but the truth is I had a list of red flags.
Mm-hmm.
I had a person who worked for me who said, "You charge what?" Like, she thought we charged so much money. And I thought,
Red flag.
red flag.
Yeah.
So in the debrief, it's about the facts. And as I've gotten a little bit older, I always say this to people: if you can combine data with your intuition and you make your decisions based on those two things, I don't think you're going to hang on too long. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would like to leave our audience with: is gather the data, trust your gut. When you have that feeling in your gut that says, I'm holding on to something that I shouldn't be holding on. And that's another something that I held on to for longer than I should have. I thought I had to be able to articulate why I had that feeling. I no longer feel that. If it's there, it's real, I trust it.
It's, it's so funny. It's like I have some people on my team who can articulate everything. Like they break it down to the detail and it makes so much sense. I don't think that way. Mine's in my gut. And then later I have to think, why am I feeling that way? And it's really important to analyze it and understand it.
Right. Awesome. Well, Rachel, and it's always nice to have it be just you and me occasionally.
Mhm.
So until next time, we want to encourage you to not hold on too long, to debrief. And when you do hold on too long, because you're probably gonna, we want to encourage you to fail forward. So until next time, thanks for joining us, everyone.